Goblin launch detected.
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. I'm also sponsored by Face to Face Games, Canada's premier Magic the Gathering store. Using the promo code MTGMudsta will get you 5% off site-wide, with eligible orders getting free shipping Canada-wide. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. If you're here, you either clicked on the wrong link, or you wanted to watch some sweet EDH gameplay. In today's game, Nick, MJ, and Max are back, and I'm playing my Jodah the Unifier deck, keeping Nick's Bloom Ancient, Sanctum Weaver, Breeding Pool, Sisay Weatherlight Captain, Eidolon of Blossoms, Hinterland Harbor, and Sulphur Falls. Nick is playing his Simic Ramos deck, keeping Fable of Wolf and Owl, Colossal Sky Turtle, Crystallization, Blood Crypt, Steam Vents, Windswept Heath, and a Mountain. Max is playing Megatron Tyrant, and unfortunately I probably should have done a better job of explaining to him how to show his cards, since all we can see is Mirage Mirror, and that's about it. MJ is playing their Be'lakor the Dark Master deck, keeping Bloodgift Demon, Aspiring Champion, Bloodstained Mire, Path of Ancestry, a Mountain, Steam Vents, and an Island. I win the die roll and start us off. I draw and choose to play a tap Breeding Pool. Nick plays a Windswept Heath, cracking it and losing one for a Ketria Triome. Max plays a Temple of Malice, which comes in tapped and scries him 1. MJ plays a Path of Ancestry, which also comes in tapped, and passes. I play a Sulphur Falls, tapping 2 for a Sanctum Weaver. Nick just plays a tap Steam Vents. Max draws, playing the Plains, and casting a Felwar Stone. MJ's also got a tap Shockland with the Steam Vents, and they ship the turn back to me. I draw, playing Hinterland Harbor as my land for turn, and then tapping all of my lands and the Sanctum Weaver to cast Eidolon of Blossoms. It enters, drawing me a card, and I pass to Nick. Nick just plays a tap Blood Crypt, passing. Max draws, and plays a Sacred Foundry, paying 2 life so it comes in untapped. He then casts Megatron on its backside, Megatron Destructive Force, and passes to MJ. MJ's got a Mountain, and plays Repercussion. They pass after that. I play a Flooded Strand, cracking it and losing 1 for a Temple Garden, taking a total of 3 so it comes in untapped. I've got enough now for Jodah, passing to Nick after that. Nick continues to draw and plays a land, with a forest coming in, and he's got nothing else, and passes to Max. Max has an Ancient Tomb for turn, and he takes 2 to help cast Combustible Gearhulk, targeting Nick. Nick lets him draw the 3, and Max then moves to combat. Max swings Megatron at MJ, flinging the Gearhulk at my Eidolon, and I take 6 between Megatron's ability and Repercussion. MJ then takes 7 commander damage, and in his post-combat main phase, Max then converts Megatron back to his vehicle form and gains 13 colorless mana. 7 of it gets used for a Meteor Golem, which comes in to blow up my Sanctum Weaver, and he then plays a Scavenged Brawler. After that, Max passes to MJ. MJ draws and plays an Island. They cast Aspiring Champion, passing to me. I draw and play a Plains. I then cast Captain Sisay, getting a Legendary Cascade into Cultist of the Absolute. I then play a Nature's Lore, going to find Canopy Vista, before moving to combat. I swing Jodah at Max, who blocks with a Scavenged Brawler. Max still takes 10 damage from Repercussions though, but gains 4 back from the lifelink, and I also take 4 from Repercussions. After that, I pass, and during my end step, Nick flashes in Horizon Chimera. Nick draws, gaining 1 from the Chimera trigger, and then casts Coiling Oracle, revealing an Incubation, Incongruity, and passing after that. Max plays his own Path of Ancestry, and going to combat, swings Megatron at me, flinging the Meteor Golem at the Aspiring Champion and converting Megatron. This deals 7 damage to MJ with Repercussion, but before moving to combat damage, Nick channels a Colossal Sky Turtle to bounce Megatron to stop the mana generation. Max then moves to a second main phase, playing out a Mirage Mirror and passing. MJ has a Bloodstained Mire, cracking it and losing 1 to find a land. They then cast Reflections of Littjara, naming Demon as it comes in, and pass. I sacrifice Sisay on my upkeep to the Cultist trigger and draw. I play a Training Center for turn, and cast Gamble, finding a card to hand before discarding randomly an Explume Ancient. I then play Raised by the Giants, getting my legendary Cascade into a Shameless Charlatan. Going to combat, I swing Jodah at Max for 14 commander damage, passing after that. Nick draws, gaining 1 from the Chimera. Moving to attacks, the Chimera goes at me for 3, and he passes after that. Max draws, and once more plays Megatron Destructive Force, passing after that. MJ draws, and plays a Swamp. They then play Be'lakor, making a copy of the Reflections, and draws 2 and loses 2. They also get to deal 6 damage as the first Be'lakor sees the second one come in before dying to the legendary rule, and they choose to have the damage go at the Horizon Chimera. MJ then just passes after that. On my upkeep, I have to sacrifice Jodah before drawing to the Cultist trigger, and I then play a Feywild Visitor and pass. During my end step, Nick casts Incongruity on Be'lakor to exile it and gives MJ a 3/3 frog instead. Nick draws, playing a forest. He then casts Fable of the Wolf and Owl, which is the reason that he built this whole deck, and passes to Max after that. Max draws, going straight to combat. He swings Megatron at me, sacrificing the Mirage Mirror, to deal 3 to the Coiling Oracle, which in turn deals 3 damage to Nick as well thanks to Repercussions. Megatron converts, and I then take 7 commander damage, while Max moves to a second main phase, converting Megatron back and gaining 10 colorless mana. He uses some of it to help cast Daretti and Genius Iconoclast, and then upticks the Planeswalker to make a Construct token. He then plays a Cloudsteel Kirin and attaches it to the Construct token. He then uses the rest of the colorless to help play out a Talisman of Conviction, and then a Liquimeta Coating, and passes after that. MJ draws and plays a Crumbling Necropolis. They then play a Bloodgift Demon, making a token copy of it, plus getting to scry 1 from the Path of Ancestry. They pass after that. My turn is very quick, as all I do is play an Academy Rector and pass to Nick. Nick draws, playing Bred for the Hunt. He gets to make a wolf and a bird token from the Fable triggers, and passes after that. Max draws and goes to combat, swinging Megatron at Nick and the Construct at me. With Megatron's trigger on the stack, Max flashes in an Ancient Stone Idol, and then flings it at the Bloodgift Demon copy, dealing 10 to MJ and making a 6/2 token. Nick then takes 7 commander damage as Chumping is off the table with Repercussion, and Max moves to a second main phase, converting Megatron back and gaining 17 colorless mana. He uses some of it for Lightning Greaves and a Treasure Nabber, and equips the Greaves onto the Construct. Max then uses the Liquid Metal Coating to turn Raised by Giants into an artifact, and downticks his Daretti to destroy it. After that, he passes to MJ. MJ draws 1 and loses 1 to the Bloodgift Demon trigger, and then draws for turn. They then play a Keeper of Secrets in their main phase, making a token copy of it from the Reflections trigger, and pass to me. I draw and cast Thassa, God of the Sea. I go to combat and swing the Academy Rector at Nick, who blocks with his wolf token. I take 2 while Nick takes 1 from the Repercussions, and as the Rector dies, I exile it to find a Dryad of Ilsean Grove. I then play Azur the Eternal Schemer, passing to Nick after that. Nick draws and plays an island. He taps 6 mana for Ramos and passes to Max after that. Max draws and casts a Nautiloid ship in his main phase, which as it enters, exiles my graveyard. He then exiles the Scavenged Brawler to give Megatron 4 +1/+1 counters, as well as Flying, Vigilance, Trample, and a Lifelink counter, and then goes to combat. Max makes the Treasure Nabber into an artifact with a liquid metal coating, and then swings Megatron at me and throws the Treasure Nabber at Nick's bird token, dealing 3 to him and gaining 3 from lifelink. This converts Megatron, and I then take 11 commander damage, and Max gains 11 life, but decides not to convert Megatron back into Megatron Destructive Force, and instead just passes after that. MJ draws and plays a Swamp. They then play Drainaken, which as it enters, exiles Megatron. MJ then follows up with Talisman of Creativity, passing to me after that. I scry 1 on my upkeep from Thassa, putting it to the bottom and drawing. I then recast Jodah and go to combat, swinging Thassa at Max. Max takes the hit for 7, and I gain 7 thanks to Zur giving Thassa lifelink. After that, I pass turn. Nick draws, playing a Loyal Guardian in his main phase and making a Wolf token. Going to combat, he puts a +1/+1 counter onto all of his creatures, and then swings Ramos at MJ. MJ takes the hit, and Nick gets to draw off Bread for the Hunt. With that done, Nick passes to Max. Max draws, playing out a Coveted Jewel, and draws 3 as it enters. He then plays a Rogue's Passage as his land for turn, and casts a Mere Retriever. Max then downticks to ready, sacrificing the Coveted Jewel to kill Jodah, and crews up the Nautiloid ship before swinging it at Nick. Nick can't block, and takes the hit. Max then gets to take my Nyxbloom Ancient out of exile and cast it, passing after that. MJ draws and loses 1 from the Bloodgift Demon, and then draws for turn. They play a Chromatic Lantern, and then drop a Bloodthirster, making a token copy of it thanks to the reflections. With nothing else, MJ passes turn. I draw and play a Mirari's Wake. I then make Thassa and my Dryad unblockable, and go into combat, swing both at Max. Max takes the hit for 9, and I gain 9, and after that, I pass to Nick. Nick draws and plays a Chromatic Lantern of his own in his main phase. He then plays a Broker's Ascendancy, making a bird and a wolf token, and getting 5 counters onto Ramos. Nick then removes enough counters to make double Wooburg, thanks to Ramos' ability, and plays a Broker's Charm to draw 2, getting 3 more counters onto Ramos, plus makes a bird and a wolf token. He follows that up with a Tome of the Guild Pact, and then plays Crystallization on the Bloodthirster copy. Nick finishes things up with a Hadana's Climb, and then plays a Forest Return. He moves to combat and gets to put a +1/+1 counter onto each of his creatures, and targets Ramos with a Hadana's Climb, which after putting the counter onto it, meets its criteria to flip it. Nick then sends the whole team that's not summoning sick at Max, who blocks one of them with the Mere Retriever to get his Coveted Jewel. Max then drops to -21, but stays alive because of the Cloudsteel Kirin. In response to the Bread for the Hunt trigger, Nick casts an Enlightened Tutor, and goes to tutor for the Kami War as a way to hopefully deal with the Kirin on his next turn, assuming he survives. Nick then draws his cards, and passes, putting a +1/+1 counter onto his team from the Broker's Ascendancy trigger at the end of turn. Max draws, and replays the Coveted Jewel, drawing 3. He then plays a Battlefield Forge, and casts Nim Deathmantle. He then plays a Shatterskull Smashing to deal 22 damage to one of Nick's creatures and one of my creatures, which has us both dying from repercussion. Before the damage resolves though, Max crews up the Nautiloid ship with my Nyxbloom Ancient, and then exiles it as I die. Moving to combat, he swings the ship at MJ for 4. MJ is going to take the 4 either way, even if they block, and knows that once they move to their turn, they'll die to their own Blood Gift Demon trigger anyway, and they scoop it up to max. Game review time. So I promised you a better showing for Megatron, and I think Max delivered. He was doing so much damage, and I think the MVP for his deck, surprisingly, wasn't even one of his own cards, but Repercussion. He was dealing so much additional damage as a result of that enchantment, that he was getting tons of mana in his second main phase, and it really helped him ramp out and get a ton of cards on the field. I think MJ actually regretted casting the Repercussion. Early on it seemed like a great addition. Early on it seemed like a great card to have out, especially with Bellacor's ability to deal damage to creatures, and then getting to double dip by dealing damage to their controllers. I think if they'd had some way to bounce it back to their hand, or the Cloudsteel Kieran back to their hand, they'd have been in a much better position. Nick's Ramos deck is always fun to see, and he actually got to resolve the spell that he built the deck around, which was the Fable of Wolf and Owl. Basically so many of his spells have green and blue in them, he gets crazy amounts of value with 2 bodies every time he casts a spell, which like on that turn you saw where he had the Ramos mana, he was able to get a bunch of creatures out, just for doing things that he wanted to do anyway. I think I was a bit naive with my Jodah deck, not being able to find a black source, which is what really hindered me later on. Max taking out the Sanctum Weaver early on was a good call, since it kept me off of black mana, which meant I couldn't recast my commander. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.